Today we take you to the dance floor, skanking to the Jamaican beat. But before that, we learn about responsible financing. Hi there, I'm Adrian Atkinson, and this is Jamaica Magazine. Stay with us.
The Disabilities Act will protect the rights of all persons with disabilities. And here's a great teaching moment. Every person with a disability, like a deaf or hard of hearing child, for example, has the right to an education with accessible facilities and the support they need. In this case, it would be a teacher who can use the language of the deaf, which is sign language. Visit jcpdja.com. A message from the JCPD, an agency of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security.
Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez, and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, November 13. Construction of the 3 Miles bypass is set for completion in 2 weeks. The new US $1 million stretch of roadway is being constructed to help ease traffic congestion in the corporate area. Senior Communications and Customer Services Officer at the National Works Agency, the NWA, Ramona Lawson, told JIS News the project is about 68% complete.
Based on where we are now, and barring any unforeseen circumstances such as rain, for example, or inclement weather, we should be delivering that in another 2 weeks.
Ms. Lawson noted that several aspects of the project, including the drainage improvement works, culvert installation, and construction of 2 Bailey bridges, have been completed.
We have just about complete with the sub-base and the base works, and the curb and sidewalk installation along Chesterfield Drive itself. We're about 90% complete with those. We are scheduled to begin pavement works in the upcoming weeks.
Ms. Lawson said heavy rains had delayed work on the project, which was originally scheduled to be delivered a month after the start date of September 17. The 2-lane, 1.5-kilometer roadway is part of the government's overall road development and traffic management program and will link Chesterfield Drive off Spanish Town Road to Marcus Garvey Drive. 44 new beds were delivered to the Cornwall Regional Hospital in Montego Bay, increasing its capacity to accommodate more inpatients. An additional 36 beds will be made available by the end of November, which will bring the total bed count at the hospital to 237. During the handover ceremony on Friday, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton said the additional beds will greatly improve the services being offered at the hospital.
That 237 beds distributed to different areas of specialization, but essentially will ease a lot of the burden that we have had to encounter and deal with as it relates to people waiting to be admitted. So from the inpatient care perspective, we can say that we are making good progress in ensuring that we are moving to a level that's not exactly full capacity, but certainly able to accommodate more persons who have to spend time in the hospital.
With upgrading work being done at the hospital, Dr. Tufton said the government continues to work assiduously to ensure that the hospital becomes more accommodating for both patient and staff. The Senate is calling for intervention programs to be introduced at antenatal clinics to support pregnant women who are experiencing physical abuse at the hands of their partners. Senator Dr. Sapphire Longmore made the call during Friday's sitting.
It is a significant point where we could intervene as a society, where we could have within our antenatal clinics, where we are coming in contact with a lot of these women who are not able to say what is happening. We could have programs there targeting them to help them, to inform them, to educate them, to encourage them to bring their partners in when they recognize that this pregnancy is not as celebrated as it should be.
Dr. Longmore says such interventions are needed given the prevalence of abuse among pregnant women. She says data from the 2016 Women's Health Survey shows a higher rate of physical abuse among pregnant women by their male partners than women who had never been pregnant. And the Ministry of Youth and Information is reporting that investigation of child abuse cases have increased. State Minister Floyd Green credits this to the merger of the Office of the Children's Registry and the Child Development Agency in November 2017.
When we started, we had a backlog, so cases that were not yet investigated So these are cases, reports of abuse. We had about 5,000 that were not yet investigated. Since the merger, we have moved that from 5,000 to 400. Still have a lot to do, but steps in the right direction.
Minister Green was speaking recently at the National Child Month Committee Youth Forum. He said a joint select committee of Parliament is reviewing legislation to enact stronger penalties in relation to the abuse of vulnerable groups such as women and children.
We need more strident and stringent penalties to send a clear message that we are serious about protecting our children and our women.
Meanwhile, parents, teachers and caregivers are being encouraged to look out for signs of child abuse among children under their care. State Minister for Culture and Gender Orlando Terrelong said a good time to take note is during play.
Sometimes the fear, they won't talk, they won't tell you what's happening, they won't tell you what they're going through. But if you give them things to play with, or if you watch how they play with other kids, they will actually act out what is happening to them. They will act out that abuse. They will let you know about that trauma just by play.
Minister Terrelong was speaking recently at a stakeholders forum on the importance of play at the Maxfield Park Children's Home. He indicated that play is also an important tool for children's cognitive, physical, social and emotional development. Similar sentiments were also shared by education specialist at the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF Jamaica, Dr. Rebecca Tortello.
As our children grow, we tend to play less, and we should be playing more, because play is one of the best ways to build critical and creative thinkers.
And finally, the local government ministry has engaged its finance counterpart to craft a program to reduce garbage buildup. Portfolio Minister Desmond McKenzie said more funds are required to implement a number of projects, such as the acquisition of garbage trucks.
The agency will require a lot more support, and we have turned to the Ministry of Finance for that support. And we are promising the country that the Christmas season, we will do our best to make the Christmas a garbage-free Christmas.
In the meantime, Minister McKenzie is urging commercial entities to use reputable sources to properly dispose of their garbage. The minister insisted that the full force of the law will be used against commercial entities which engage in illegal garbage disposal. And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Thanks for watching.
$650 students, $100 million. How are they connected? Through the Hospitality and Tourism Management Program offered at 32 high schools across the island. It's a 2-year program to equip future tourism workers with the requisite skills to meet the demands of the growing global industry. Graduates will be certified by the American Hotel and Lodging Educational Institute and received an associate degree from a local college. We're building a resilient tourism industry through human capital development.
Up next, a recap of last week's major happenings out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister urges students to shun crime, calls for persons to exercise caution on the nation's roads, and celebrates 55 years of partnership with the World Bank. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Anthony Morgan.
One of the things I want to give you today is that you must never be ashamed of success. And you must always seek to be the best at what you do, to be excellent.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness encouraging students at Caenwood High School last Tuesday. He was there to deliver a motivational speech in line with Youth Month being observed in November. And part of that empowerment, Mr. Holness said, was the call for the nation's youth to shun violence producers in their communities. This, he said, was the only way that Jamaica could remove itself from being among the most murderous countries in the world.
It has to start somewhere. And it has to start with this generation, with you saying no more of that. The Dons are illegitimate. They are evil, corrupt. And we must get them out of our society. The gang members, we must get them out of our society. And that you, as good citizens, should cooperate with the police and give as much information as you have on these criminals. It is the right thing, it is the honorable thing, it is the good thing to do. That is the only way that we're going to turn the tide of criminality in this society. It is an uncomfortable truth, but it has to be done.
And during a question and answer segment, Prime Minister Holness promised to continue the National Security Ministry's drive to rid the Jamaica Constabulary Force of police officers who associate with criminals.
The policy of the government of Jamaica at this time is to provide you, the good citizen of the country, with a police force, a security apparatus, a law enforcement apparatus that is of the highest level of integrity. And we are working assiduously towards that.
On Wednesday, the Prime Minister renewed his call for increased road safety, particularly as the Christmas season approaches. Though the number of fatalities on the nation's roads this year has already surpassed last year's total, Mr. Holness said the figures could be lessened if everyone takes safety seriously.
If every single driver, before going behind that steering wheel, were to think safety, and every child going to school, every teacher in the school, were to raise this issue of proper usage of our roads by pedestrians, including our children, and if the entire Jamaica were to think safety, we could have no crashes.
The Prime Minister was joined by the Spanish Ambassador, JN Foundation, UNICEF Jamaica, and the FIA Foundation. The team was there ahead of the launch of the X Marks the Spot initiative at Hazard Primary School in Clarendon. X Marks the Spot is a worldwide initiative that aims to provide students safe access to and from schools. This is being done through the installation of infrastructure such as crosswalks, bus bays, signage, as well as widening and paving of sidewalks at schools. Wednesday also saw Prime Minister Holness meeting with representatives from the World Bank, headed by the bank's regional vice president, Jorge Familia. Mr. Holness thanked the World Bank for its 55 years of strong partnership with the country. This, he said, included more than 150 projects focused on promoting sustainable growth, improving investment capacity building, climate, and building resilience. For his part, Mr. Familia reaffirmed the bank's continued support to strengthening the island's financial resilience, natural disaster, and human capital. In the week, Mr. Holness opened the doors of the courtesy room to welcome visitors to the office of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister met with Jamaican attorney Cheryl Brown. Brown is one of 150 women who was honoured by the University of London on its 150th anniversary of admitting women to the institution. Prime Minister Holness also met with the 2018 Olympia amateur title holder Dwayne Walker. The International Federation of Bodybuilding and Fitness Professional is the first Jamaican to cop top honours in the competition while training and living in Jamaica. And that's how we close out Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Anonymously report allegations of corruption, bribery, fraud, or acts of malfeasance. Help the Revenue Protection Division, RPD, secure the government's revenue. To help, citizens may call the Revenue Protection Division at 1-888-225-5773 or Crime Stop at 311. The RPD, partnering with you, securing the public purse for growth and development.
Financial resilience, long-term planning and budgeting are among the critical pillars of economic freedom. Next, we turn to the Ministry of Finance and Public Service for a few money-wise advices.
Hello and welcome to Finance Matters, a production of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. I'm your host, Daniel Pasley, and in our last program, we were focusing on financial inclusion, and we spoke about what it is and really how can it impact us as an ordinary Jamaican. But today we'll be focusing on the pillars of financial inclusion, and who better to speak to us about that topic than National Financial Inclusion Coordinator, Ms. Melanie Williams. Thank you so much for coming back on the program, Melanie.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me a second time. I appreciate that very much.
Now, the pillars, there are quite a few. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
If you think of the pillars as being 4 pillars of a house with a foundation, we'll look at it in that vein. You have first responsible finance, which has to do with consumer protection, savings, pensions, insurance. You also have financial access and usage, which is how do you gain greater access to credit? How do you make payments? You have also financing for growth, or housing finance, or MSME finance, or agricultural finance. And you have the supporting infrastructure, which seeks to allow the development of, if you will, pipelines or the plumbing to have greater flow of information and finance to and from the various sectors. So that's what we're all looking to achieve. And of course, we have financial resilience, which looks at long-term planning. How do we empower our consumers or citizens with the information they need to actually plan for different events throughout their life cycle, if you will. Planning for education, planning to acquire a home, planning for retirement. All of those elements are part of what we seek to achieve with financial inclusion.
All right, let's zone in on some of those pillars. So the first one, tell us a little bit more about that one.
Okay, if you look at responsible finance, what that is really saying to the Jamaican consumer is that we know that when you engage in interactions with financial institutions, you need the information to make proper decisions about what product is best for you. That means you need a product that is free from legal jargon and a lot of complexity. You need to have it broken down and explained to you in a simple manner. How do you actually have a negotiation for a loan? How do you calculate the interest payable on each repayment of a loan? And when you have a difficulty, how do you obtain some measure of assistance, if you will, in terms of handling your complaint and resolving your complaint? So think of it in that vein. That's what we're looking at. If you think of financing for growth, zeroing in on the agricultural sector, and of course our micro and small and medium-sized enterprises, what you're really about is, whether you're a small farmer or you're an investor, you really want to know, okay, how can I obtain credit to meet the needs of my business so that I can facilitate production in a timely fashion? Rather, if you're looking at the issues to do with responsible, well, we touched on responsible finance or financial resilience, you want to know about your saving products that are best suited for you. If I put my money in the bank, am I going to have to deal with, after a particular period of time, my account will become dormant, and what does that mean for me? How do I access it? How do I reactivate it? What do I have to do? How do I open a bank account? What do I have to present in order to do that? And can there be a different treatment for me in terms of easing the entry requirements to open accounts so that I don't have to go through a great deal of pain in order to be able to actually engage in business with this financial institution? And the supporting infrastructure is, as I've said, new products that allow me to do business more efficiently. Can I get a mobile wallet?
Right.
Can I obtain access to my funds on my phone? Can I do online transactions easily? That's what it's all about. How do I make business happen for me in real time, faster, with greater confidence that I know that I am protected and my money is secure? In the Secretariat, we assist the individual ministries or agencies or departments that have responsibility for each of the 53 action items.
Wow.
By bringing them together with other team players, other members of the network that we spoke of last week, and they actually engage in discussions and create the policy in a collaborative way with the private sector and with non-governmental organizations that represent the interests of the consumer. So you develop that policy as part of a broader approach of consensus. And we facilitate training, we facilitate engagement with the public, we also facilitate ongoing consultation. The policy is produced, it is then handheld by the relevant ministry and directed through cabinet, or if it is a policy that will result in immediate product development, that is then taken on board by the entity, such as Development Bank of Jamaica, and they craft the product design so that they can now engage with the public and immediately start bringing the micro-entrepreneur, bringing the small entrepreneur into contact with them so that they can empower that person.
Let's celebrate Jamaica to the world. Fastest man in the world. First Jamaican woman to win gold in Olympic 100-meter sprint. An upcoming global superstar. Mouth-watering meals. And a vibrant set of people. We are Jamaicans. Let's get together and bring back the love.
There is no question about it. We are a creative people. One area in which we have put a stamp on the world is dance. Coming up, dance is created on the rock.
Similar to the country's motto, out of many one people, Jamaica's indigenous dance movement is a rich mix of African, European, Spanish, and several other ethnic influences. A shoulder movement from the British, hip roll from the Africans, and so on. All gyrations and synchronized rhythmic stepping, locals have merged to birth new dance styles.
Indigenous means that it was created here. It's native to the space. I call some things indigenous formalized. They're indigenous, and all these indigenous things, like, for example, gere, they say it's a creolized form. Now, when you say creolized form, that means some of it was shaped here, so then it becomes indigenous. So there are quite a few others.
Brookings reveals a unique mixture of African and European influences. The Brookings Party is a stately, dipping, gliding dance typified by the thrust and recovery action of the hip and leg.
So, for example, Brookings, you cannot go back to Africa and find Brookings. Remember, Brookings was a celebration for the abolition of slavery in this country called Jamaica. And there's a long story behind that. So that position happens in Brookings. All right, get up. But she don't do it all the way. When them do it, it's all down on the ground and the back and back.
This band of masqueraders scare a few, especially children. Some persons are definitely not in favor of one of the characters, the devil. John Kunu goes as far back as slavery, but at that time, the bands were very large and elaborate. The musicians would play tunes of well-known traditional songs on the fife, accompanied by bass and rattling drums, shakas and graters. Their primary dance movement is to prance, behaving wildly as they try to evoke fun or mockery.
Original sound. Ska the foundation sound. Ska music is a great, great sound. Jamaica's first international.
What you see down across is arms that come out of Jankuno, come out of our ancient forms as well. And so you see those arms in Ska. Those same arms. What it come from? It have to come anywhere from sky. It come from our ancestral memories, our heritage, and it bleed beautifully into modern day times, into what we call popular dance.
Dancehall in the 1960s, a popular dance then was the ska. Oh yes, skanking was the movement partygoers would do to the rhythm of the similar name, ska punk or hardcore punk.
Jamaica's first international.
When people say they're dancing bingy, also indigenous. Any movement that you see people do in Rastafari, because Rastafari, and it's not only dance.
That's right. Rastafarianism is a religion and it has its own dance.
Although African Kumina has been here for so long, it is a tradition in the space. Kumina was not created here. It is Kikongo. In the language they speak, free Africans and enslaved Africans, the more they came, brought that tradition, that religious tradition, to the space. But over time, because that is from 18-something, you know, it becomes traditional to the space because it's constantly here. Dance hall is indigenous. Anything out of everything in dance hall is indigenous. And so everybody should be saying, anybody who dance hall should mention Jamaica. Because Jamaica is who created that cultural space that has in it dance. Dance hall goes right back to Africa. And if you go online now and you look at Africans doing dance hall, there's a slightly different flavor to it. But there's a use of bottom, there's a use of, the use is similar. So some things, you know, are what Kamau Brathwaite, the writer from Barbados, says tide electric. In that the tides of the ocean bring it come, and sometimes the tides of the ocean carry it back. So if you look at dancehall, you know, the ocean bring all of this African, and then sometimes you see it carry back, and dancehall is in Africa now as African dancehall. In dance, it's a forward movement when we decide to be Caribbean-centric. So now we're not necessarily Afrocentric or Eurocentric. We have now created a space of our voice. We are Caribbean-centric in the movements that we create. From the time of ska that you mentioned, all the way up now to dancehall.
Nutritious food, succulent dishes, superior workmanship, and excellent service. Jamaica is on the go. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Let's harness the indomitable spirit of our most valued resource, our people. Let's support our local businesses. After all, buying Jamaican means building Jamaica.
Original.
This is where the magazine closes for today. Please do visit our social media pages. We are just a click away. You may also download our app to be notified on our new posts. Until next time, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thank you for staying with us, and do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.